Hey, everybody, welcome to Grilling at the Green here in Portland on AM 860, also on the Golf News Network. And we will actually be releasing a bunch of new affiliates very shortly. So look forward to that. We'd like to thank the folks at Painted Hills Natural Beef, beef the way nature intended. You can find out more about Painted Hills Natural Beef by going to paintedhillsbeef.com, and also John Breaker and his family back at Birdie Ball in Colorado. Birdie Ball is kind of looks like a napkin ring, but it's a great little practice device for your backyard or the park, or maybe even in the living room if your wife isn't home. Anyway, go to birdieball.com. Well, our guest today, Rick Rangel, who's the new CEO of the Oregon Golf Association. Rick and I have been trying to get together for about 5 months now, and we finally made it happen. Rick, welcome.
Thank you for having me, and happy Thanksgiving week to everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving to you too. Um, you have some history in the golf world. Obviously, worked in Northern California. I will say this, a little joke we shared off the air, but you're a recovering banker. I like that part too. And you were the NCGA's, this Northern California Golf Association Director of Growth. And you were also a member of the USGA and AGA club like golf club task force. So what prompted you to look north to Oregon to come up here and apply for the job at OGA?
Wow, if I turn back the hands of time to 18 months ago, we were looking at ways to better our family. Like how am I at home more often? I have two twin girls that are at the time they were in preschool. So we were looking at ways to help our household income, ways to kind of stay on the West Coast, if you will.
Sure.
My in-laws are down in Monterey. And then, quite frankly, to backfill what I would say is a legend in the game in the form of Barb Trammell. So I knew the OGA had very tenured team, high quality team. Some of the members I would see at annual conferences, and I respected a lot of them. So when the opportunity arose, I put my name in the hat, and through a series of multiple interviews, a call was made, into which I accepted. And next thing I know is, how do we uproot our entire family and go to Oregon? Um, the selling to my kids were, we're going to be very close to Sun River in Central Oregon, so they were ecstatic, as opposed to the 12-hour drive, because we were vacationing up here pretty often. And just, I think, the natural elements of what Oregon has to offer, whether it's the sea or the desert or just the topography, we always found
Yeah.
ourselves up here. So
Yeah. Well, that's it. That's kind of an easy sell there, Dad. If you've been up to Sun River in Central Oregon, it's not too hard to say, hey, we're only going to be like an hour and a half, 2 hours from there. I'm sure you got a golf clap from the family at the dinner table for that.
I did, and I think we've gone 6 times since we've been here in the last 15 months. So holding true to my promise.
Oh, good for you. Good for you. Did you always have an interest in golf?
Growing up, I was introduced to the game around age 9 or 10, give or take. I have full on, and my teammates heard me say it, I have full on middle child syndrome. And my dad, my parents, one favored the oldest, one favored the youngest. But my dad, it was a good time to go out and spend quality time, whether it was 2 hours for 9 holes or 4+ hours for 18 holes. And it was just
Sure.
a great, father son bonding, or, you could say father daughter bonding. Just, it was a great time to spend time with my role models, which were my parents. So we enjoyed it. I was never that good. I played on my high school golf team. I was the sixth man. Sometimes I became fourth or fifth. But I've always been infatuated with sports, and golf being one of them.
I think it's more important that you have a good time while you're doing
Yeah,
it, don't
I
you?
agree.
Yeah. I'm terrible anymore, but I still never pass up a chance to get out there.
I
It's
would,
all, get the sticks and I'm gone. Um, so what is the job? It's kind of a loaded question, so answer it as you would. But is the job everything or more than you expected?
I would say it's been more and everything, combination of both. It's everything I anticipated,
Hmm.
just bigger role than what I had at the NCGA, and more in the terms of really getting to meet like the stakeholders, the community. and understanding like the true impact of what we're doing here at the OGA, whether it's from the team and learning about them to the stakeholders, whether it's the chapter, the section, the working with our partners in terms of the PNGA, and just getting to know like the Oregon golf community and what makes
Yeah.
us unique. So it's what I anticipated, learning the new role, but then also the gratitude and the gratifying things that come with it.
You had some tremendous shoes to fill after Barb. It's as I got to know her over the years, and you don't know everything when you first meet somebody, and over the years we talked many times. She was on this show many times, but when you think about all the things she did in the golf world, and she's still active. I mean, she's not sitting home eating bonbons, but you think about, working the LPGA, working at the Masters, doing this, doing that. And it's like, wow. And you just never know, do you?
Barb is she's an institution. I talk to her probably once a week. I think I text her more than she cares. And then we generally meet up once a month for cocktails somewhere, some food, some appetizers. And I feel like I'm always gaining more than what she's receiving. And
Yeah.
she's been an awesome mentor. Look what she's done in the game of golf. And, it's fitting that the sports team here is called the Trailblazers. And that's kind of how I view Barb as and what she has done and the lasting impact she's held here at the OGA, but not just at the OGA, as golf associations
Yeah.
nationwide.
Yeah. She's an incredible lady. And I still do. I'll have the utmost respect for her, but just kind of in awe of her too at times, just when you hear everything she'd done. It's quite a list. So, where do you think the OGA is now, Rick? Just overall, just give people a thumbnail, if you would, please.
The OGA right now is we got a lot of projects that we're working on with change management. My team's learning how I operate. I'm learning how they operate.
Mhm.
And it's been really rewarding. Forward thinking, we have a couple of projects. If you come out to the OGA golf course right now, we're under construction. We're reinvesting into our own product in terms of redoing the entire irrigation. In terms of OGA and membership, we've had 7% membership growth versus last year. That equates also to revenue. And then we're looking at ways on how to enhance our benefit offerings, whether it's through employee stores, whether it's through the web and digital access, whether it's in person in terms of events, competitions, championships. But we're always thriving and moving forward to help our constituents, if you will.
You ever think about having a big barbecue bash in the parking lot over there?
Gosh, I would love to. You and I were talking offline. We obviously the name of today's show, but I am a huge barbecue enthusiast. So much so that our holiday party for our team is going to be barbecue themed. So that would be great. We could put some barrel smokers out here.
Well, you let me know if you ever want any help with that. Okay, I'll do that.
I think we could figure something out.
I think we probably could too. Give us your observation too of the actual OGA golf course. I mean, it's a tough job that you got. I know where your office is. If it's still where Barb's was back in the corner there, and you can kind of look out and see things. How does the OGA course stack up to places in California?
It's unique. The OGA golf course I love. I try to get out and play, not as often as I wish, but I could tell you like this past Friday, three of my colleagues said, "Hey, do you want to come out and play 4 or 5 holes with us?" So I grabbed my sticks and went out in 10, 11, and 12. And I purposely went out to 10, 11, 12 because of that Fed irrigation project they had
Right.
just put in the lateral pipes. And, we tee off of 10. And next thing I know, I see what are the rollers that you see on the road laying the asphalt. I see one of those going down the middle of the fairway to impact the green, to impact the fairway and push it down. But I enjoy it. Obviously, I'm playing it more than any of the courses here. I think it stands up to any of the golf courses in Northern California. I had the privilege of working in Pebble Beach for many years, and
Right.
our office was at Poppy Hills, and they're different but also unique to what I would say is the Pacific Northwest.
No, very good. We're going to take a break. We're going to be back with Rick Rangel. The news. Well, you've got a year under your belt, but the new CEO, I'll put it that way, of the Oregon Golf Association. We'll be back in just a minute. Welcome back to Grilling at the Green. I'm JT. If you want to get a hold of us, me or my team here, it's real easy. You can just go to info@grillingatthegreen.net. You can go to the website, Grilling at the Green, and or Facebook or Twitter. We've got all those platforms there. And just send us a note, and either I myself or somebody else will get back to you. Rick, here's something where I usually put my guests on the spot just a little bit. We have a little segment here called Golf Trip Travel Tips. I can't even say that fast, and I make my living with words here. But and this is sponsored by the good folks up at Weston Kia. But do you have any travel tips? You've obviously traveled with and without sticks around.
Yeah, I would say travel tips for me are always take off the driver heads or your fairway heads or any removable head. Wrap them around the tower, put them in the Seamus head cover, if you will, if it comes with it, and put them in your travel luggage, and then wrap a towel around your irons so that they don't bend. I was running late last 2 weeks ago. I was coming back from Dallas, Texas, and forgot to do that and learned the hard way. I had one that was actually snapped.
Oh no.
So that's the first time in 13 years that I've never completed that, and it's kind of what I get for rushing through. I usually take 2 pairs of golf shoes wherever I go, just depending on the lay of the land. And then second is, if you're in the golf business, never travel without your clubs, because there's always an opportunity to go out and play somewhere.
Absolutely.
And not just the golf business, but you should do that in general.
In general, I'm not worried about you replacing that club. I think you might know somebody. Get you deal on that. So the golf world has been just kind of topsy-turvy the last year and a half with, well, I don't have to tell you, but LIV and the tours and this and that and all that. And we've only got one tour stop now that comes in through the Portland area, and that's the Portland Classic, the LPGA, which is always a great tournament. But overall, what's your thoughts on professional golf right now?
Professional golf, I mean, it's in the news every other day. When you look at whether it's ES, or however you consume your news in terms of sports and golf,
right?
It's there. You can look at it in different ways. From a branding perspective, if golf is in the news, and maybe that's a good thing. From a traditional specialist, it would be great to kind of go back to the way the PGA Tour was. Think about 2 years ago, and just the bifurcation. LIV is now potentially bringing into the fold with PGA, or they have that framework, and you saw some reactions. But then think of like someone that put themselves out on the line, Rory, and having him to come back and what happened to him. I feel for him. I think it takes a lot to be that visionary and that spokesperson, what the industry needed. But I hope they put aside their differences sooner than later, and we just come together as one unit. At the end of the day, we want to see TV, that spectacle, if you will, and enjoy seeing some of the players that are on another tour back on the tour that we've grown up with.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate, but those at that level, it always comes down to money. And I'm not a purist. I love to see pros on any tour make a good living and have fun, and because we all look to them to say, man, I wish I could hit it like that, or whatever your thoughts are. Mine are like, yeah, well, maybe once in my life I hit it like that. But the point is that I just see it all coming down to that. We'll just have to see how it shakes out. I hope you're right. I would love to see that. Everybody kind of drop all the anger and swagger and all that stuff, and just let's move on with this and see what we can do. Which leads me to another question for you. What about, and what is OGA's official position, if it and truly has one, on like rolling back the ball in some of these things? And I'll tell you up front, I'm not in favor of it because I need all the help I can get.
Well, I think like you're talking about elite players, right?
Right.
And when you go back to the rolling back the ball and that piece that's coming out right now, and at the end of the day, the OGA aligns with the USGA, and we will always follow their recommendation, and that's generally where we've always stood for.
Sure. Well, um, I can understand that, but I don't ever, when we were talking a couple minutes ago, we were talking about money and this type of thing. I don't ever see the Acushnet, meaning Titleist and TaylorMade, some of those guys that have millions and millions and millions of dollars into manufacturing golf balls, let
Mhm.
alone the revenue side of that equation. I don't see them backing down very much either. So this some compromise will come to the forefront at some point, I hope.
I hope so. I think that's generally the right thing to do. I mean, you talk about Kushner and Taito specifically, like the Pro V1 or Pro V1X models, and you look at like research and development and what that would mean. If they have to do more R&D at the end of the day, like who loses? It's probably the consumer, because someone's going to absorb that cost, and that
Right.
cost generally comes back to the consumer. And I hope for the betterment of the game, they come together sooner than later, and see what comes out of this. Maybe we certainly can't make it any more difficult than what we have already done. So
No, that is true. That is true. And then let me take that one step further. We just got about a minute here, but also that goes for golf clubs, Rick. I mean, I saw one the other day in my closet. I saw one of my original 3 woods. It was about, you can't really see me, but it's about that big, you know. Um, and now that's about the same size as a utility club or like a 5 wood or something. That was what I was hitting with when I started. And I thought, man, now we've got these, we've got a kitchen sink on the end of a stick here. Uh, I think anything that helps you that's within the USGA's parameters is a good thing. But I wanted to get your take on that too. So I want people to get to know you a little bit here.
yeah, no, as long as it's within the USGA, United States Golf Association's conforming limits, I'm in agreement with. They set the standard. You're right. Drivers are now 460 cc, whereas
Yeah,
you roll back 15, 20 years ago. You looked at the original like Big Bertha, and it was only, you can't see me, but it was probably smaller than if you made a fist with your hand. But now they're 1.5 times that. And you look at like in all aspects of life, right? There's been growth. You and I are meeting right now on Zoom. Was that feasible 4 or 5 years ago? And I think golf is also, we're a little bit slower, if you will, in terms of adopting that technology. But
sure.
as we progress, as society progresses, you continue to advance little. But at some point, where do you have to like say, okay, what do we do? What are we doing? Where are we going? And what does it look like? What does that driver head per se look like 5 years from now? And who's going to help kind of guide us into that?
Yep, absolutely. Rick and I are going to take a break. We're going to be back with Grilling at the Green in just a moment. Please stay with us. Welcome back to Grilling at the Green here on Golf News Network and in sundry other stations smattered and scattered across the country. I wanted to tell you about the Painted Hills natural beef deal. Of course, you hear me say all the time, it's beef the way nature intended, and beef like what your grandfather used to raise and all that. But if you go to paintedhillsbeef.com, there's an online store, and it's fairly new, and they've got some great products in there. And if you think you want to order one, because you might not have a retailer in your area that carries Painted Hills natural beef, I get that. So you can buy it online. But if you go down in the bottom left-hand corner when you're checking out, there'll be a little spot down there that says, "Do you have a code or as I like to call them, coupons, a coupon?" My wife gives me hell about that all the time because I'm always joking around. All you have to do is type in Barbecue Nation, BBQ Nation, and you will get 15% off your order. And that's not your initial order, that's every order. So just go there, order. That's paintedhillsbeef.com. Go to the order page, pick out what you want, type in bbqnation.com, get 15% off. And also the folks at Birdie Ball, like I said, John Breaker and his family back in Colorado. It's a great little practice tool. I have a lot of fun. I stand out there and hit them off my deck into the yard. because I've got enough of them now that if I don't want to get my feet wet, I just keep hitting them till I run out, and then then I wait till it gets dry to go get them. So that's the epitome of lazy, I guess, Rick. But that's something I do here in Woodburn. Where do you see the OGA in, say, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years?
So my background is I'm a tech enthusiast, technology. I
Yeah.
love to make things streamlined. I think the data behind it helps know us, know our member, our community intimately. So what we're doing here internally, it's kind of like what the way I've been sharing it with my team is we're doing foundational elements. So if you think about your house, if you don't have a strong foundation, things can crumble. So what we're doing is we're bringing in technology in terms of like a customer relationship management platform, abbreviated called a CRM. That's kind of going out nationwide across the U.S. to a lot of those golf associations. So we're learning it, we're developing it, and we're going to use it throughout the OGA's website, how you interact with us. We're reinvesting into our clubs. So we have this community of 310 golf clubs, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's golf course or associate or affiliate clubs. And we're giving them tools to help streamline their operations. We're blessed to have an army of volunteers that lead our clubs, and a lot of them are unpaid, and running a club is kind of difficult. So what we're doing is we're going to give them some tool sets to help streamline that operation. And then, another foundational aspect is I mentioned this irrigation project going on at the
Right.
OGA
I
golf
drive by it
course.
every day. So
You see, I mean, you would think
yes.
it's a construction zone going on, which it is, but you know, without a green golf course or without functioning irrigation, you can't have a golf course. So to me, that's another foundational element. In the next 3 years, I look at our business model, and we'll look at it as like, how do we have that foundation of sustainable success, and how do we make things easier for our members? And we're going to town on that, and we're hoping to have something in the next, let's call it short term, the next 6 months, to help our clubs, help our members, and ultimately help our golf community receive more messaging and stay more engaged with the OGA.
How do we, and this is kind of the wheelhouse I come from, how would and does the OGA interact with other businesses? Um, OGA is a business. Langdon Farms up the road is a business. Okay. How do you propose to expand the OGA's relationships with some local, some more regional? I mean, it's not too hard for the OGA to maybe work with Titleist, like we talked about, or
Mhm.
pick one. It doesn't matter. But how do you work with more regional businesses? One might be Les Schwab tires. I'm just making it up as I go along here, so bear with me for a second. Or how do we do with more local businesses like Burgerville or something? I
Mhm.
mean, those might not be good examples, but I think you get the picture. To me, not just OGA, but a lot of golf courses have overlooked their potential partners with somebody that's just 5 miles down the road. And in this is just my opinion now, Rick, but uh, going forward, I think we need to. I'd like to see the golf industry as a whole reach out to some more of those businesses and find some common ground that they could work with, whether it's sponsorships or incentivizing something, whatever it is. I'm kind of looking in that direction myself personally. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
No, I agree. I think there's plenty of opportunity for what I would call business development.
Mm-hmm.
We represent all of Oregon, and we have 50,000 active members, and with that, it's a pretty feature-rich database. We could easily help business develop, whether they buy an email advertisement where we disseminate that information to our entire constituents. But I want to make sure like there's that fine line, right? Like we're ultimately a golf association, so it's got to
Right.
be, something relative to golf, but also not spam our members. And I know I
Right.
look at my inbox every day, and I try to get it to an inbox of zero, and every day I have a new vendor coming in. But how do we help each other? I have this saying here at the OJ, and though my team will tell you, I say it pretty often, but rising tide lifts all boats. And I think if we reinvest in our community, reinvest in our members, and kind of ultimately like help our value proposition, like, you pay us X amount of dollars, and what are you getting in terms of that back? And there's
Mhm.
plenty of opportunities there.
Um, I know that you do a lot of work with the kids. I think I'm the only board member on the Oregon Junior Golf, whatever the proper Woodburn Junior Golf, that they do the Woodburn High School tournament there every April. I've worked with Coach Wilhelm now for, I don't know, 8, 9 years, whatever it's been. We've got a couple, 3 Evans scholars out of the deal,
Yep.
and that I like to see things like that too. And I know, it's a time commitment as well, not just energy but time. And but I think OGA does a pretty good job with that, um especially with the Woodburn ones, because they practice there. But there's other groups around, and I think that's important too.
I agree. I think that is, I would say, Oregon Junior Golf, or OGA, our foundation arm is Oregon Junior Golf. And we are investing heavily in terms of not just dollars and cents, but actually getting the right person in there. We just recently hired Monica Von Fisher as our director of development, donor engagement and development. She's formerly with University of Oregon as their assistant coach and NCAA national champion. She was an OGA champion by the age of 15. And her sole responsibility is help raise funds for Oregon Junior Golf to reinvest in terms of affordability and access, so that no young kid ever doesn't have to worry about paying. And then we
Yeah.
go through, subsidize it through Youth on Course. And I'll take that a step further. One of the coolest passion projects that I've been able to do since started here is we partnered with Seamus Golf, Akbar Chisti, to help
Yeah.
design an Oregon golf theme license plate. So later next year, the community will be able to purchase a golf theme license plate, and $45 of that will go back to Oregon Junior Golf. So if you drive around, you see all of our themed license plate, whether it's Smokey the Bear, the Culture Trust, Salmon,
Right.
Pacific Wonderland. You'll see one soon for that's golf themed, and if you purchase it, 100% of the proceeds go back to support junior golf and all of our constituents. So it's pretty rewarding, kind of my fun passion project.
You got roped in with Akbar there. He's a wild man.
He
he's
is incredible.
I love the guy, but he's a wild man. you know he's been on the show a few times in the over the years. He's a good guy. um when you when you have to make a decision, and the decision is resting on Rick Rangel's shoulders only, it always will come down to that. You're the guy. You gotta pull the trigger, say yes or no. Has your methodology on that changed somewhat since you've been up here versus what you had to do in California? Or there's no specific inference there. It's just two different areas, two different situations.
Yeah, I would say that's the part that I've grown the most. When I was in Northern California, um, I can make the recommendation, but at
Yeah.
the end of the day, that decision wasn't up to me. And I was pretty good to like understand, like, hey, these are the reasons why, and these are the reasons why. At the end of the day, it's business. It's not personal. Since I've been up here, I've been very blessed to have a talented team, and I think any leader surrounds themselves by really good individuals, and it's part of a system of support. And getting that constant feedback loop on what to do and what not to do, and then also, learning from your headstrong, but then also following your gut and your instinct.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I'm sure there's been some instances where I've not met the standard, but I would say more often than not, the end goal is to hit that standard and feel like I've been right. But there's also been areas where personal growth and development.
Well, I haven't seen anybody over there with pitchforks and torches, so I think you're doing okay. You know what I mean? We're going to
Well,
take
thank
a
you.
break. Rick and I are going to be back, wrap up this part of the show. I'm going to con Rick into sticking around for a few minutes after hours. He has no idea what that's about, but we'll get him educated. You're listening to Grilling at the Green. It's fun. It's easy. Welcome back to Grilling at the Green. I'm JT. Grilling at the Green, as you know, is on Golf Newsnet on iHeart, and we're on multiple stations around. If you're in Portland, You can listen to it on Saturdays on AM 860 here and also in Seattle. Although I just got that word, so I don't know the call letters yet, so I can't tell anybody, but we'll figure it out for you. And we're talking with Rick Rangel, who is Rick came up from California and is filling the shoes that Barb Trammell left. It's a big job, but I think he's doing a great job there. What's your overall impression about the golf in Oregon?
I love it. I've been fortunate to travel more, a lot of long days in my first year, but I committed to getting out and understanding, this new state of mind. And golf, man, as Team OGA, I feel like whatever entry that, whether it was a team championship like the PNGAs where we work with Washington Golf and Idaho and BC, the crew that represents the OGA have been amazing, and they've brought back a lot of hardware this year. And in terms of my personal golf game, getting out and seeing some amazing sites, playing a lot of golf, man, this is paradise, and it's kind of a hidden gem. One of the things a lot of people forewarned me on was, well, wait till the winter comes. And we are happy to say we survived. I think I donated a lot of my income to Colombia, just the warm weather. But Monterey, it was often overcast and low 60s every day, so it wasn't that drastic. But golf here in the Pacific Northwest is absolutely amazing from coast to inland.
Oh yeah, and as far as at Monterey, all you had to do was drop the temperature about 15 degrees, and you're here.
Yeah,
That's it. I mean,
and
it's pretty simple. Actually, we have pretty mild winters up here
I would
most of the time.
I grew up in the Midwest and very familiar with snow. And I think last year we had one snow day. So I was anticipating the worst. It exceeded expectations. It's pretty mild. And I think the summer's trade off of seeing the sun is pretty incredible.
Yeah, we have some great summers here. If there's something something that you would say, not about OGA, just in golf in general, and we're going to get to these types of questions in after hours. But if there was one thing that you could say, that's got to change, that's got to be fixed, what would it be?
Oh man, I've never been asked that question. Um, Golf in general,
Yeah,
I
just
would
overall throughout the world, what have you?
I would like to see. Gosh, I you stumped me. I don't know how to respond to that. I consider myself forward thinking in a lot of things,
Yeah,
and in terms of my profession, but that's a broad statement. I would welcome individuals to get custom fitted for their clubs if they can afford to do that, because I think
yeah,
that's a major difference in how you shoot and practice. But in terms of rule, there's alignments from the USGA and the RNA. In terms of course rating, there's the World Handicap System, so that's been unified. You asked me the question about Live and PGA Tour. Hopefully, they come together. But man, I honestly, I think golf has been in such a good place the last few years, especially since the pandemic, where supply out meets demand, or demand out meets supply. That is this sustainable? I think early 2000s we had the Tiger effect, and we saw that run up of a lot of people join the game, and
right.
we've been fortunate to have, I would say, 100-year instances twice in this century. So how do we sustain it and keep those that are new to the game keep on coming out? And I think that's up to us, that's up to the stakeholders, and it's ultimately up to the consumer. Like, it's a fun sport, and it's a game for a lifetime.
We'll pick this up on the other side on after hours, but one of the things that kind of irritates me is if you're just getting into the game and you're watching some on TV, you're on YouTube, you're doing whatever, you subscribe to some professionals, send you emails and videos on how to improve your game, or you go take a lesson. That's all great. But people complain about slow play. Fair enough. Except, how do you expect those people that are just getting started, or maybe they've only been playing for 6 months to a year, to keep up with people that have been playing for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, whatever? That's that's the thing that I see it on the golf course. I see people being a little bit aggressive and coming up and saying, and you were taught and I was taught, like, go ahead and let's play through, what have you. But I see people get really aggressive about that. And it's like, you're not going to keep these people in the game if we don't find some balance to that. That's something to think about. But while we go to break, Rick, and we'll come back with After Hours. How's that? Okay. We've been talking with Rick Rangel. He's the new CEO of the Oregon Golf Association. He's been very kind right here before Thanksgiving to jump on the show with us, and we appreciate it. We just break out of here and then we go into After Hours. But Rick, thank you very much. You've been a real good sport about this.
Thank you, everyone.
No problem. We'll be back next week with another edition of Grilling at the Green. Until then, go out, play some golf, and be kind. Take care, everybody. Everybody, welcome to After Hours here on Grilling at the Green. I'm JT, and today we've got Rick Rangel with the OGA. Rick's gonna trade me some golf for some barbecue. Well, he doesn't know that yet. But the question I posed to you right at the end of the show was, I can appreciate the slow play complaints. I really can. I play in some of these tournaments, and they're benefit tournaments. And even though the course wants you off there in 4.5 hours, it's 6 hours sometimes before you can do it. I get all that. But how do we strike that balance of not running people off or telling them you can't play OGA or Langdon or Columbia Edgewater? You need to go play the Woodburn course across the freeway here that's 9 holes flat and has sand greens. That's where you belong to play. And I've actually heard that. And it's like, that's not doing us any good.
No, I mean, is that welcoming message like, hey, don't play this course, go play something else that's more suitable to your game? And there's a couple ways. Um, if you're new to the game, there's the I think it's called Operation 36, where you actually start at the green and work your way back. And then you start with the putting, you start with the wedges, you start with your irons, and then work your way back to the woods. In terms of pace of play, we're lucky if you're a OGA member or just someone with a golf handicap, you know what net double bogey is, or formerly known as equitable stroke control, ESC. After you hit a certain amount of shots, and let's say you're nowhere near the green, you pick up your ball, and then the Gin app, or whether you're posting your score online, will go ahead and backfill whatever that score should be. Hypothetically, if your net double bogey is an 8 on a hole, you just pick up after 8 holes and you move along. And I think that's what people need to understand, that if you're in the double digits and still counting your strokes, it's time to lift. And if you have a handicap index, it'll work for that. It'll count for that accordingly.
Yeah. Well, that's one way to do it. By the way, I don't know if anybody told you, since you've assumed this job, a lot of the founding members of the OGA, a lot of guys that own Filbert orchards and hop farms and that, and they have a pretty significant men's club over there, or they did. I think they still do. They would go across the freeway and play on that 9 hill sand green course before men's club started, because they didn't want anybody seeing them playing in the men's club stuff. So they would go over there and practice like in February and March, and then they'd show up over here and good to go. So little inside baseball for you there.
Oh, it's good insight. I wasn't aware of that. So thank you.
I don't know if they still do it, because some of those guys were a little older, but yeah, they you can drive by over there and see them out there, because you can hit 4 balls at a time. Nobody cares. And so they could practice all they wanted until they showed up at the OGA for the men's club, probably women's association too. So I've got a few questions here, kind of irrelevant or sometimes irreverent, but you've been a good sport so far. So here we go. Is there a touring golf pro that you would like to have a lesson from?
Oh man, where do I start? My father enjoyed Lee Trevino, and I think about the way he hits his irons, and going back to tape, watching his tape. I've been privileged to play with Ernie Els a few holes, and enjoy his company. And Jason Day, and obviously, Tiger Woods is who I grew up with. Man, that's I'm all for. If I could get a lesson from any of them, I would be a humble person for the
There
rest
you
of my
go.
life.
Who do you think is up to this point has been the greatest golfer in history? There's always a conflab about that. I'm talking about competitive golfer. Is it Bobby Jones? Well, they kind of surpassed him a long time ago. Is it Jack? Yeah, there's an argument to be made. Is it Tiger? I'm in the Tiger camp. I'll tell you straight out. Okay.
I
So, what's your thoughts on that?
mean, you can't take away from what Jack has accomplished, but I grew up with Tiger, and I've read all of his books. I'm a fan. I still wear Nike because of Tiger, and I think what he's been able to do, and the way he's as long as he's been able to do it, has been transformative for the game.
You're going to see him play here in a couple of weeks,
Yeah, the Hero Challenge in the
the Hero
Bahamas.
Challenge. And he'll probably be down at that father son thing too, won't he? Or, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. He'll be with Charlie.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
um, anyway, I always just enjoy it because when I have a friend, um, she's an adaptive golfer. She lives in Florida. She's done very well, and she works with Bridgestone. And they brought her in about 6 months ago to shoot a commercial, and Tiger was there. Matt Kuchar was there. Trying to think of who else was there. Maybe Jason Day. I don't know who. And Fred Couples was there and all that. And she said, and they were filming her putting and doing different things like that. And she said that she was just kind of standing there leaning against the golf cart, and Tiger came up and said, "Hi, how are you?" And he shook her hand and all this and talked, and then they went about filming whatever they were going to film that day. And towards the end of the day, that was when they were having the match. Um, it was him and Justin, or I don't remember who all was playing in that. Uh, Jordan and Justin and Tiger, and was it Kuchar playing? Anyway, Tiger asked her if she wanted to go or if she was coming. She said, "Well, I don't have a ticket." She goes, he goes, "Oh." So he called one of his assistants over and he goes, "It's just you or and the guy said, "We don't have any more tickets." And Tiger said, "Get her 2 tickets now." And so she got the VIP pass, the whole thing with that. And it just changed her. You know what I mean? She was just enamored by this whole thing. So he's
I
done a
think
lot of good.
it's great. We're at the time where we're seeing the human side of Tiger.
Yeah.
There was the stoic side when he was not to say he's no longer that elite player, he still is. But now you get to see Tiger the father. You get to see the different various roles. Tiger the designer. A few weeks ago, he was playing at the Hay in Pebble Beach, and it just happened to coincide with Youth on Course, which is a national initiative, the 100-hole hike, and there was a guy that hit a hole in one, and he came over and gave him a high five, and it was just neat seeing
Oh,
Tiger
cool.
outside of the stoic Tiger from his
Yeah.
competitive. Well, he's still competitive, but when he's inside the ropes as opposed to outside the ropes, and just
Yeah.
hearing that story is pretty heartwarming.
Yeah. It really was. Back to a couple of these questions. If you could play golf with any historical figure, anybody, hopefully they played golf, uh, past, present, whatever, who would that be, Rick?
Bobby Jones for one. I would say Bobby Jones. Um, I think it would be neat to play with one of any of the 45 presidents, 46 presidents.
Yeah.
I think no one in particular. I just think it would be such an honor. And I'd probably invite my father. I think
Oh, sure.
he's historical to me, maybe not to everybody else, but I love and respect the man, and he's always been my superhero.
Does he still live in the Midwest?
Yep, he's in northeastern Indiana, northwestern, eastern, pardon me.
Wow. He's a Hoosier.
He's a Hoosier.
Oh, how about that? Um, if you could have dinner with one historical figure, who would it be and doesn't have to be anything about golf now, just in general. Uh, who would it be, and what would be on the menu?
Ooh, uh, I would say barbecue on the menu.
There you go.
Your choice of burnt ends, brisket, or just even tri-tip or ribeye. One historical figure. I think it would be John F. Kennedy, Jr., and that's just because as a child, I was always did a lot of term papers on him and school reports, and I just think he was an interesting figure in life, and life cut short. But
Yeah.
I think that would be an interesting conversation.
If there was one thing that you could change about golf, what would it be? Personally, doesn't have to be Supreme Allied Commander stuff. It's just there's one thing that you could change about golf. What would Rick Rangel do?
Uh, I don't know if I could change anything.
Yeah.
That's not just a political answer. I think golf hasn't, I mean, we still use the same 14 clubs that we've had since old Tom Morris. It's obviously stood the test of time. It would almost be don't change it, leave it as is because it's been working. And there's something to be said that if it's, don't reinvent the wheel, keep it as is. And
Yeah.
it's obviously stood the test of time.
Do you have a favorite golf writer?
I'm a Jaime Diaz guy. I really like what he puts out. Shipnuck is a Northern California guy from an
Yeah.
NCGA fan. Um, one of those two, writer, obviously. I really enjoy Jim Nance. I think what he does, and in my NCGA days, we got him to be the voice. If you called in the phone number, you would hear Jim Nate say, "Hello, friends, welcome to the NCGA." So that was pretty special.
Yeah.
But I'm just a golf junkie by nature, so it's
Did you
hard
ever
to.
get to go over and play at his little uh course right there behind his house at Pebble?
I did not. I did not. But if he's listening, he should invite me.
Jim, got to get Rick over there. Okay, I'm just telling you, buddy, you got to get Rick over there. He deserves it like that. Um, as time goes on, there's going to be more and more encroachments on golf courses, space,
Mhm.
housing, environmental factors. I don't think the golf course superintendents and golf CEOs get enough at the course level, enough credit for trying to, protect the land, make sure the water's good, so on and so forth. But do you see that as something we can work with going down the road, or do you think it's at some point? I'm not trying to get you to be a doomsayer, Rick. It's just the fact you can just look outside your course now where the old filbert orchards were and what they're doing there. They're developing some housing there, but it's not just here where we are, it's all over the country. How do we deal with that?
Yeah, I think of like resources, right? The West Coast, you think of the drought that's happening in Colorado River, the impact that's going to have in Southern California, the impact it's already having in Arizona. What's sustainability of golf courses? Does everything have to be lush and green? Can we do the right and left side of the fairway where that's natural sandy area or
Mhm.
removing just in terms of water resources? And then you mentioned land grabs. Here there's housing going on, but I turn on to my old California days. There was the Assembly Bill in 1910 that was trying to take golf courses and making it into affordable housing. Dave Fiscum is an executive committee member of the OGA and former lobbyist, and he has this phrase of what happens on the coast generally goes up and down the coast. And we saw that earlier this year. There was a couple threats where the reserve was named, as was Pumpkin Ridge, and potentially using that as an area for potential semiconductor. So, if we look at that and potential threats, how do we go as an alliance? We have the Oregon Golf Alliance here, and we have industry partners. But it also looks at, what does our lobbyist efforts look like, and how do we
Yeah.
make sure that we're in a future position that if any of those threats happen, how can we be as a coalition within the industry and make sure that we thwart those threats? Southern Oregon, potential droughts down there. And then, how does that look on the West Coast and everything west of the Mississippi and everything east? But there's always going to be natural threats. You look at the land that it uses, that it encompasses, but how are we good stewards of the land as well as the resources that are granted our way?
It's kind of unfortunate in a way, because when a lot of golf courses were built, just take our local area here from Salem to Portland, a lot of those courses have been around for quite a while. Um, compared to some of the courses in Portland, the OGA course is a relative newcomer. But when they
Mhm.
built the golf course, they never thought about having to fight for its existence, over resources. Some of them were built so there could be houses around them. Some of them were built so that there was buffers and barriers, so there was no broken windows from errant tee shots. Thank you very much. But my point is that uh, the golf industry has to be on its toes now to all of these things. It's not just an elite sport that somebody that's got a platinum American Express card can afford to do. It's everybody, and uh, the targeting, if you will, to use a football term, is on the golf industry at times too.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think as an industry, there's a national coalition, and you have your golf associations such as OGA and Northern California, Southern California, up to Washington Golf. But as an industry, including the USGA, we tend to look after each other and let each other know of any threats. But also, how do we unify those voices? And that
Right.
goes to the PGA section, that goes to the golf course superintendents, that goes to the owners. And I think as a unified voice within one industry, that makes us stronger together.
Okay, one last question. What do you want for Christmas?
I want for I don't. That's a great question. I think I just bought my Christmas gift to myself, which was I was just telling you I bought a Alpha oven,
Yeah.
outdoor pizza. And that's probably what will be my Christmas present, and I'm ecstatic. I get to make some brick oven pizza with my kids and wife, and that's good enough for me.
Did you get that driver head fixed, or the driver?
No, but that's not a Christmas present. That's actually an essential tool
Yeah.
for the trade.
I love that. I love how you can justify that. I
Oh
really
yeah.
do. I'm impressed. Rick Rangel, CEO of Oregon Golf Association. It was a pleasure to meet you, and great time to have you on the show, and we will certainly do it again.
Thank you, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy holidays to you and yours.
You too, Rick. We'll be back next week with another edition of After Hours. Until then, be kind, go out, play some golf, and don't eat too much at Thanksgiving, because you'll end up looking like me. Take care, everybody.